Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. This is my dad, Ted.
Welcome to the Smart Thinking Podcast. I'm your host, Ted Knightsky. A few weeks ago, I was asked to present at an HR conference, and I was specifically told to share the most recent data on Generation Z and how to support them as they enter and thrive in the workforce. I found myself really learning more about how to support all people than just Gen Z as I did the research and readings. However, based upon what Gen Z has overcome, there are some exceptional things about Gen Z as they enter the workforce that get me pretty excited. Because I believe we can all get better at supporting each other if we take into consideration some specific behaviors and supports, especially around the new ideas in how to elevate the new workforce. Heck, how to elevate the whole workforce. But here we go. We're going to do some smart thinking around how to support people at work. As we look to find ways to support the success of others, we need to keep certain things in mind. What is the changing nature of the workforce? What is our future like if there are more jobs and less people? What type of culture do we want to work in and create? And how do colleagues make life and work more engaging? And what will we do different in order to find success for ourselves, success for others, and success together? Well, before we get too far, let's do a quicker recap of what we all are. Because we're all influencers. That's right. Every one of us is influencing people every single day, just by being ourselves. And that's what makes us a leader. And remember, anyone with influence is a leader. And leadership is all about being hyper aware of our ability to change the direction of other people by just going about our days. A leader, after all, is anyone with influence over another person, and each of us has that all the time. How we enter a room, how we respond to others, what energy we bring, how we use our strengths each day to support other people in areas that might not be their greatest areas of strength. We influence by having a strong center and maintaining optimism, which means we always bet that we'll win. I've never understood the people who bet against themselves. I try really hard to try to figure out why would you want to do that to yourself, because it doesn't seem to make sense, but I get it. Life can be hard, but if they find people like you, it's not going to be as hard because they're going to be standing next to somebody who's willing to just jump into the storms that they are facing. Because after all, we're all buffaloes. And buffaloes, well, what do? We run into the storms we are facing and we never run from them. Instead, always running towards them. This positions each and every one of us with the energy we need to control three things: our happiness, our mindset, and our engagement. And we also recognize that no one, not a single other person can do this for us, which is make our choices. We always choose our happiness, our mindset, and our engagement. And this is critical because today a lot of us struggle. And the struggle is with those narratives in our head, mostly fueled by our own inability to challenge some of the beliefs we have come to as a result of worrying and not confronting the things that are bothering us. But with social media, we are supercharging our narratives, and this is driving anxiety levels through the roof, especially for our younger members of the workforce. But let's be honest, we all struggle with the occasional anxious vortex, and we need to find herds that help us instead of enjoy hurting us. In order to do that, we need to become conscientious of the conditions we create for others and how we support them when they are vulnerable. And what is the most vulnerable time in each of our lives? Any sort of transition. And that is where we're going to do some smart thinking today. Hold on, though. Before I get into this, I need to tell you a story. I have been very fortunate in my life to continue to find opportunities to advance myself. And when I started my career as a teacher, I was incredibly fortunate to run into these older folks who took really good care of me. Funny, now that I'm 53 and a half years old, that these leaders were probably younger than me when this story took place, because it was in the mid-1990s when I had just started teaching at Random Lake High School in Wisconsin. I was super lucky when I graduated. I was one of like 3 billion social studies teachers to graduate that year. And in the job market, I think there were 2 jobs. And I interviewed for all of them. And I ended up getting a half-time position teaching at Random Lake High School with the promise of subbing all I wanted. Now, Summer, Megan, and I had just gotten married, and when we returned from our honeymoon, we both had in-service. I drove up to school, and the superintendent met with each new teacher, and then he met with each of the new staff members. But one at a time, we were brought into his office, and he sat us down, and this experience fundamentally shaped my future. I'm a Gen X kid. I'm skeptical by nature of the old hippies that were running the world. I was a latchkey kid, and I helped raise my brothers. I was very self-sufficient and grew up during recessions, a Cold War, and then the fall of communism. The world was changing, and it felt very carefree in the mid-1990s. My parents never really taught me about financial investing or saving, and I came into our marriage in a ton of debt. I mean, I had credit card debt, student debt, I had all kinds of debt. And then my superintendent, Joe Gassert. Well, he did something that I'm still benefiting from today. Joe was a great guy. He was our superintendent, a self-described former hippie who followed Bob Dylan around and went to Guthrie concerts with my principal, Dave Farnham. He was smart, kind, and caring. He was innovative, and he took risks. There were 4 new teachers that year at our school, and he took each of us into the office one at a time. My contract for the year for my half-time job was $12,000. Joe handed me a piece of paper. Now looking back, I am now without a doubt under the belief that what he did that day to me was very wrong, maybe even illegal, but it was at best maybe unethical. However, it was in my best interest. He handed me a piece of paper and he said, I want you to fill this out, and where it says withdraw, I want you to put $100. I asked him what it was, and he said, just do it, trust me. I was very intimidated being a new teacher and sitting in the superintendent's office, but I was like, I'd really like to know what this $100 is all about. Joe said, listen, I have kids your age, I have sons your age, and I know what happens when I suggest things versus tell you to do something. I've watched too many teachers make bad financial decisions over the course of their lives, and I'm going to make sure that you start investing now and you don't do this. I was like, yeah, okay, but where's this $100 going? He then asked me if I had a financial plan for myself and my wife for the future. I remember laughing because I just got married. I mean, I was freaking out about my student loans coming due at the beginning of October, my $99 a month minimum credit card debt, and I was only teaching part-time. We didn't have extra money. And my wife, well, she was the breadwinner. She was a full-time teacher. I said, Joe, I have no plan and need to make as much money as possible. As a matter of fact, I'm taking every coaching job and weekend jobs to fulfill and sustain our family. And he said, I don't care. You're going to fill this out and you're going to put $100, and that's going to help you save as much as possible. I looked at him in great frustration. I mean, $100 a month was a game changer for Megan and I. He then said, I want to show you something. He brought out a calculator and asked if I knew how to compound interest on a calculator. I almost fell off my chair laughing. I have a very complicated relationship with math. I could barely calculate just multiplication. He said, I'm not letting you leave here until you understand that one simple premise, and that's you putting $100 a month onto this form is going to fundamentally change your future. I then got a very loving and caring education from Joe. He showed me the power of compounding interest and explained that I was going to be investing in a tax-sheltered annuity, and that if I put $1,200 away this year, it would be worth tens of thousands when I retired. No one in my life, seriously, had ever talked to me about investing or saving for the future, or taken the time to think about me 30 years from now. I have a degree in social studies, political science, geography, and a minor in economics. I should know this stuff. And weirdly, I am now 30 years from this experience, but I can remember it. I can remember how I felt, and I can remember how powerful the impact was as Joe explained to me that he wanted me to take care of my future. Every year after that, Joe would come down to my room. He would tell me about how my new contract would be put in place in my office and what my raise would be, and then he would stand over me and make me invest more money from my check into the TSA, just whatever percentage increase I had gotten that year. I don't know if he did this for everyone, but it had a profound effect on me as a young man and a young teacher, and now as a leader. I kept making those withdrawals into the TSA, and I've kept that account and been investing in it for now almost 30 years. And he was right when he showed me that calculation, because today I'm worth $100 million. I wish. I'm not worth anything. Anyways, that experience did set me up for the future. And today I do have that TSA account. And we need to make a difference today as we approach Gen Z. And well, I think everybody. I mean, think about what we've all been through the last 20 years. Wait, I need you to think about something. We develop the people around us, and while we work hard to support them, we are all shaped by our experiences. I think that Gen Z and now the Alpha generation are amazing. And that's been pretty well documented on this podcast. I mean, the last greatest generation, truly, the great generation, was born into a pandemic. They survived a depression. They fought World War II. They came out of World War II with economic uncertainty into a Cold War where we were in a standoff, and then into a space race where they were freaking out about a little thing beeping around the planet called Sputnik, and then racial strife. And then their kids started having kids. But the greatest generation, they went through all that, and they built an amazing country. Now, Gen Z kids, well, what have they been through? First of all, they've had insane parents during the last 20 years. Please remember, the next time you start criticizing the kids and young adults at your workplace or in your life, you need to remember we created everything we complain about for them. Vaping, cell phones, social media, literally everything that they are going through, we created. No one else but us. What were these kids born into? Well, I really want you to think about this, because Gen Z was born right after September 11th. The United States military has been actively deployed for most of their lives. We have had world conflict, military world conflict, for the majority of their life. I truly believe that in 10, 15 years, they might refer back to the last 2 decades, as World War III. They lived through a housing collapse, the Great Recession, racial unrest, and then, right when they were supposed to graduate from high school and start college, they got hit with a pandemic, a lockdown, all the crazy anxiety that came with it. These young men, women, and people are remarkable. And that all happened by the time they were 22 years old. Some of them are still in high school. Most of them are in college or in the workforce. And the last generation to deal with this was the greatest generation, but just in reverse order. Because the greatest generation was born into a pandemic. Then they had the Great Depression, then a war, housing collapses, pandemics, unstable economies. Now let me give you 10 cool facts about Gen Z. Gen Z represents the most racially and ethnically diverse generation in the history of the United States. Just that group of young men and women. Gen Z brings their values and beliefs into the workforce and believes their values should be at the heart of what they do. Gen Z has a voice and is very comfortable expressing their opinions. Gen Zers are fiscally conservative and have a keen focus on income, investing, and spending. Gen Z are known for being entrepreneurs. As a matter of fact, 62% of people between the ages of 20 and 26 years old, 62% have a side gig, meaning they have some entrepreneurial thing they're making money on, whether that be selling their clothes or making something up with a product, being an influencer online. 62%. Generation Z is known for being resourceful. Gen Zers are independent learners. They make up this whole generation by doing things on YouTube, TikTok, learning from the internet. They are going to dominate AI. Gen Z brings conversations of mental health to the forefront. I'm so proud of them. They will talk about how their heart feels, how their head feels, how those two things connected can create nervousness, then anxiety, and then depression. And they will advocate for themselves. We're so weak. I am. I could never go tell somebody, I'm feeling really anxious right now. I'm feeling I might be triggered and I don't know if I can do my job. They will. And we need to accept that. Gen Zers are justice-minded. They have a heart for a mission and they get out there to make things happen. And Gen Zers are independent workers, yet they crave social interactions and support. So what do we do with all that? Well, it's time to take some things into consideration and support them. And once you hear these ideas, you'll be like, maybe we should just do that for everybody. All right, so what do we do? First of all, if we want to attract and retain Gen Z in the workforce, whether that be in a school, a law firm, a firehouse, a hospital, wherever you're listening, the first thing we need to do is we need to give them choice and voice in how they are mentored. And we need to support them for up to 3 years. Yeah, here's what you need to do. Normally, it's kind of, well, it's Jerry's turn to mentor the kid, so let's have him mentor it. Well, number one, they're not a kid. And number two, it should not be a burden to be mentoring someone. So what should happen is the new employee, the Gen Z person, should be able to meet a few people and then decide later, hey, I felt really comfortable with Sophia and I'd like her to be my mentor. We need to focus on engagement and 360 surveys with Gen Z employees. And what I mean by engagement is literally using like the Gallup Q12 to measure, do they have what they need? Do they understand their job? Do they have support and recognition? Are they getting reinforcement? Are they getting feedback? Do they understand their job? They need predictability and milestones. Don't just send them on their way. Life isn't grad school. Show them on day 1, day 4, day 8, day 12, this is what needs to happen. Now, some people, especially my age, are like, well, how are they ever going to figure it out? Well, if you listen to me and you read the book 10 to 25, you understand that we need to have high expectations and equal support. We need to tie all of their work back to a purpose and make sure they understand how they're making a difference. We need to clearly define their career ladder and PD for that, their professional development, on the first day. These are people who want to understand not just their social standing, but how they can advance themselves in the workplace. They are not going to sit around and wait for their turn to be advanced. Not in the current workforce. No way. They can find jobs very quickly. And they're not going to stick around because, well, if you're a good soldier here, in 4 or 5 years you get a promotion. Nope. They're going to want to know that up front. As I'm saying this, doesn't this just kind of make sense for all of us? One of the things I'm going to ask you to do right now is a big change in behavior, especially if you're over 30 years old. I want you to fight generational ignorance and stand up for the new people. When you are young, one of the worst things that you can hear is when somebody comes in and says things like, I've got shirts older than you. This tie was bought the year you were born. I've got grandkids your age. That does not feel very welcoming. As a matter of fact, it feels disparaging, and it's just not worth doing. So fight it. Step into that space. That young man, young woman, or young person is there because they are qualified, they've got skills, and frankly, they can probably do things you've never imagined. So instead of putting them down, build them up and step into that space. Remember, we need to loop examples of what they value into their work. Like, this job is going to help us sustain things. This job is going to support people. This job is going to keep people stable in their future. And then the last two things. We need to support mental health like we support physical health. Right off the bat, we need to make sure that young men, women, and people can understand what it is that they need in order to be successful. And we need to be there for them. We need to make sure we are checking in. And we also, as older generations, have to be vulnerable and step into the space and say, you know what? I understand what you're going through. Tell me what this is like. And how can I help? That's not that hard to do. Now, if you're listening, I also want you to think about what we can do for all generations. Because what Joe did for me was pretty awesome with financial literacy. But I'm finding the older I get that everyone procrastinated on not only investing, but understanding their own retirement options. And as we're heading into the future, there's no greater thing that can make you more anxious than not knowing if you're financially stable as you're moving forward, or how to save, or how to get out of debt, or how to buy a house. All generations need that support, and it is the responsibility of the employer. The other thing is, as parents, we need to support other parents. Young men, women, and families, as they are emerging, they need support in how to parent their own kids. And as we're talking about that, we also need support with just adulting. Do you have a will? Do you have a will? Have you done estate planning? If not, why not? Well, probably because no one in your life, like Joe for me, poked their head in and said, hey, do you have a will? Do you have your estate planned? Do you have life insurance? Things we all say we're going to do. We aspire to do. And suddenly you're 35, then you're 40, then you're 45. Then all of a sudden life insurance is super expensive. And shoot, I don't even have a will. How do we support people who are parenting their parents. What do we do? Do you know how to navigate that? There's too late for too many of us as we're trying to find different ways to support our parents and help them through their medical issues or help navigate the world of social services or places like nursing homes or healthcare or paying bills or all of that stuff. That's jumping into the deep end. We should offer support for that in the workplace. We should also offer how to navigate healthcare. I don't think there's anything in the world more difficult to understand than healthcare in the United States of America. I always make the joke that I don't pay my bill from the clinic or the hospital until I get the next one will be a collections notice, because too often I have paid that bill and months later gotten a refund for overpaying. I don't even understand it. I've got a bunch of degrees. And finally, we should not only be doing financial literacy and wills and estate planning, but we should start retirement planning right off the bat. Gen Zers need what I got from Joe, which is to sit down and here's what we need to do. We need to look at the world of work differently. No matter what you do, I need you to be someone's Joe. He stepped into my life and made sure I knew what I needed for Megan and I, and now Charlie and Grace, so that I could set myself up for the future. I assure you, I would have never started saving for the future while I was looking at the financial situation I was in. I was in total debt over my head, and the last thing I was thinking about was putting just a little bit aside for the future. And I do believe it is the employer's responsibility. It's our collegial responsibility to support all aspects of the people we work with, to ask questions and help navigate and put people in a position to be successful. In a world where Gen Z kids are the most anxious young men, women, and people on the planet, why wouldn't we start to help them be less anxious about their futures? I mean, we have a generation that is amazing. They are frugal, smart, independent, fiscally conservative, and they seek wisdom everywhere we go. We need to step it up, not just for them, but for everyone. I mean, think of this. I looked this up. 33% of your adult life, you're at work. That's 1/3 of your life. The other third, you know what you're doing? Sleeping, which means that 66% of your life is either working or sleeping, which means that 34% of your life, you're spending that money or streaming or scrolling or running or doing your hobbies. But the majority of your life, you're either asleep or at work. So what are we going to do? Because work is most of what we do, and we should get all the support we need for our future, our well-being, and our life from it, and the people we are there with. So here's my challenge. I think you can tell I'm getting a little excited. I challenge you and your organization to start being different. In a world where we will now be hyper-competitive for jobs, we need our colleagues to be the ones to get other great people to work around us. Yeah, you heard me. We need to create the working conditions so that the people who work by you run around and try to collect other great people, because there's going to be a day, actually, we're already there. There are too many jobs and not enough people. And basic economics tells us that's just going to have people moving to where they want to go, where they hear good things and where they're taken care of. And the organization needs to create the structures, but we create the cultures. I'm going to say that again because I really need to emphasize that so that you hear it. Leaders, like the hierarchical leaders, they create the structure for all of the different things that we have in our workplaces. But the colleagues, you and I, sitting at tables, working together, collaborating, we create the culture. Imagine a workplace that supports your life. Well, stop imagining it. Now go into it, create the culture, support each other, create a place where people want to be and that you magnetically attract the best talent to come work by your side. 33% of your life is spent at work. Why not make that amazing, remarkable, engaging, and fun? Well, guess what? Go charge into that storm and make that image that you are seeing, well, make that your reality. So let's do some smart thinking. Describe how you set yourself up for the future. List programs and supports you need in your current season of life. And finally, describe innovations you could support in your workplace to help out Gen Z, well, and everybody. That's it. That's the Smart Thinking Podcast. Hey, as always, thank you for listening. And please make sure to share this episode with others. Make sure to Help others as they are moving through this and be somebody's Joe. Step into that space and tell them, hey, you need to do this so that you don't regret it, and even do your best to make it non-negotiable. Thank you for helping me help other people become leaders and buffaloes and join our herd of smart thinkers. And, of course, thank you to the Well Pennies for their amazing music. I just really appreciate the fact that they always give me good music to share with you each week. Now, let's close out here. Both of my kids are Gen Zers. I don't know if I'm a hyper advocate for them because I love them so much and their friends and all of the other Gen Z young men and women and people I've ever met, but I want to tell you this. He fits every stereotype I just spoke about. He's living with us to save money. He's a full-time teacher, and I want to share something his district does that completely supports his generation of teachers. Now, it's pretty interesting when your son lives at home. He's an adult. He has a car. He has a life. And actually, I don't really think he's our son anymore. I think currently he's our roommate. But here's what his district does. And I don't mean to embarrass his district, but they do something that supports him in a really unique way. Each month, his district's instructional coach subs him out for an entire day, and they work through what he needs to do the upcoming month. They have high expectations for Charlie, and at the same time, they have high levels of support for them. They review his methods, his assessments, his practices. They give him feedback. They make sure that he's feeling comfortable, and he's built a really strong relationship with other people within the organization so that if he does have questions, if he is feeling anxious, he can go to them and get support. It is the ultimate level of support for a new employee and just a person. However, what is this doing for him? It's addressing everything this generation needs. Where does he stand? He now understands that. He gets feedback. They get support for his practice. He gets mentorship, strong relationships. It allows him to be vulnerable and confident. And his mental health is strong because it's such a huge reduction of anxiety. I wish we created intentional practices for all new employees and each generation's needs like this. I find myself getting older, and I'm experiencing the same anxieties I had when I was younger. An impending transition in my life makes me nervous. A new future makes me nervous. New opportunities and lots of unknowns make me nervous. And I just wish I always had somebody that I could lean into. Wait, I do. I've got great friends who allow me to do these things. But does everybody? Now, while I cannot see myself retiring, the ultimate transition, I do not know what is coming. And the world expects me to know everything. And I don't. So I want to challenge you all to step into the life mentor and coaching role this week and support the world around you so that we can have a stronger herd around us. We're doing it for Gen Z. We got to step into a stronger space, but we need to be available and supportive of all generations so that each group of people and everyone you know can learn from your leadership, but most importantly, step into the storm that they are facing. Okay. I'm closing out with an artist I found while I was chilling out on Friday night and listening to a ton of new music. He's a young artist named Thomas Levine. He's from North Carolina, and I fell in love with his song. The song is Better Days, and it is best listened to with headphones on. The layers and the lyrics, the piano and the harmonies will leave you smiling. And I love the lyric, "Hold on, wait for better days."
Hey, on the yesterday, you left without a trace, but I wanted you to stay. Drove